Hi, welcome to the US Road Trip of Adventure Part 2. It's been several months since I did the first part of this series, but I'll link it up in the corner up there, or up there, whichever one is right, I keep forgetting. And today I will both tell you about the rest of the journey and about what to think about or consider when you get a rental car. I will put a timestamp in the info box down below, so you can skip directly to that if you're not interested in the story. But I do hope you are, because I think it's always nice to listen to travel stories. So after we got to, I think in the previous video I got to Denver, and I really like that area. Like I still love the Rockies. That's why I live in Calgary. Like, it's wonderful. It's so close to the mountains, and it still has like the dry like prairie climate. Like it's a good combination for me. Anyway, after being in Denver, we headed towards I don't remember which town we met up in, but one of Rox's online acquaintances, which turned out to be a really good friend. He was really cool, and we went there to first like see what this person was about, actually just to meet them for the first time. When his band was playing at a bar. And it was actually really cool. Like, I liked the band members, I liked him, like, everything was cool. So then we decided to meet up again in Cincinnati and stay at his place for a few days. But before that, we headed north towards Chicago instead. So we were in Chicago for maybe 2 days, and this would have been in September, so the second half of September in 2012, I think? Yes. So we headed to Chicago, and there was some kind of convention going on, an IT convention, which made all the hotel rooms completely booked up. So the hotel, I think, where we had actually booked a room already was overbooked, so they didn't have anything, so they called another place for us, and it was starting to get late in the day now, or later at night, I think 10 p.m. or something, and we were really tired from driving all day, so that was frustrating. But the front desk people were really helpful, and they helped us find a room, which I think turned out to be the most expensive hotel room during that entire trip, just because of that overbooking thing, like many people staying in the same place. We didn't really see much of Chicago. I don't remember much of that town, because it was just basically, it felt like a pit stop. We just went there to be there and then we left again. I wish I'd paid more attention there, but I think we were a little bit exhausted, and that whole thing, the debacle with the hotels, made it not as fun to be there. Oh, actually, one thing about Chicago that happened that was really scary was they have a lot of roads that are like stacked on top of each other. Like, there are like 3 layers of highway on top of one another, and we lost our GPS signal in the middle of that cluster. That was scary. We didn't know where we were and where we were going, and the all of a sudden the message says signal lost. So I think we were on one of the lower levels, obviously, because otherwise she wouldn't have lost connection, but we ended up at some place where we could actually stay the night. A hotel, yeah. So we moved on, we drove south again towards Cincinnati, and the city that borders it, I don't remember, let me look it up. Oh, actually, it was Covington, like right across the river. So it wasn't Cincinnati, but that's the direction we went in. So we stayed at his place for 2 days, because we needed basically to await my and Rox's paychecks so that we could continue the journey. The guy was really cool though. We wouldn't have done that if there was any question about his character. So that's actually where I first went to my first baseball game and my first saw my first American football game on TV. That was actually really fun because people get so like engaged about it. I'm not a sporty person, I don't really care, but it was really nice to like be there and see how people act, and yeah, it was fun. Also the snacks were really good. I also impressed the guy with how much I can eat at a Brazilian barbecue. Churrasco. It's one of the best things in the world. If you've never been to a Brazilian barbecue, you should visit one. Like, unless you're vegan, because then they won't have much for you, or vegetarian, and not much there. Obviously, barbecue. But then you have a little like disc on the table, and one side is red, one side is green, and if you want more you leave it with the green side up, and like service would just circulate in the restaurant and go to tables which have the green side up. That shows that you want more, and then when you're like satisfied, you'll turn it around to the red side and then they'll give you a break. And then when you want more again, you turn it back to the green side, and you can keep doing that for hours, like as long as you want, and they will just keep bringing you the best meat in the world. So yeah, I really do love those places. I got sidetracked by food. Okay, so when we got those paychecks, we thanked him for his hospitality. It was a really cool guy. And then we drove, I think first to Washington, D.C. Yeah, we drove through a few states that I guess we stopped a few times, but mainly cornfields. You know how it is. And then we got to Washington, D.C., where motel rooms were also quite expensive. So we kind of ended up at the outskirts of the city, and it was a little bit shady in that area. So we didn't really like the area we ended up in. I don't know what the area was called, but I really liked the center of the city, like that park where the Lincoln Memorial and the tall obelisk thing. Sorry, my brain blanks out sometimes. I really loved the Natural History Museum. And this was at the time when Obama was president, and while we was at that square, we saw 2 helicopters fly by towards the White House, and we waved at them, so we like to think that we were waving at Obama. I think that was really cool. And then, after we were done in Washington, D.C. and felt like we'd seen a lot of the stuff that was there, we wanted to go to Boston before we ended the trip in New York, so we went north, and we really did want to avoid New York and like drive around it because we didn't want to end up like in the middle of New York in traffic. I was driving, we failed, so we ended up pretty late at night driving through was it Bronx? Roxa was worried I wasn't because the car was moving, like, not a problem. But anyway, it was like we were in traffic in the middle of a very big city, and I'm not really comfortable driving in huge cities with that many things moving. I'm more of a like long haul driving person. Like, I like the fields, I like the views, I like highway driving, basically. But I love the city. Yes, we had to get through it, and then it was getting pretty late, so we had to stop for, I think, as usual in the vicinity of cities, we were running low on fuel. So right when we had basically exited the New York City borders. We found a motel just to stay at for the night because it was getting late. We were tired. Just wanted to continue the day after. And also, we were not expecting the toll booths along this freaking stretch of road. So we ran out of cash. We did our best. Like, obviously, you have to shell out the coins for a while, but then you run out. So what are you gonna do? We had to go through the booths. And don't you know, like, they took all the information. We were Swedish, and then 3 months, I think maybe 4 months after we had done this trip, Roxa got a bill in the mail about from one of the toll booths. Like, they were dedicated to getting these freaking tolls. I know roads need maintenance, but that's why you pay taxes, okay? Okay. Anyway, so the day after, things were fine. We drove north towards Boston. I don't remember much about Boston. I think we looked at a park, we drank some coffee, pretty much got the vibes. I don't know. At this point, we were kind of tired of the entire trip. Like, it was nice to see things, but at the same time it can get a little bit overwhelming and exhausting. So by the time we got to Boston, we were kind of over it. So then we were there for maybe 2 days. Then we drove south again towards New York, and about 2 days before we were gonna fly out again, we handed back or delivered the rental car, so that we didn't need it for the last 2 days, since we used the New York subway. I think we were in New York for about 4 days, and we got to see a lot of things. It feels like every day we ended up at Times Square. I don't mind it, but it was also a strange thing, like that really was like at the middle of everything. I really enjoyed Central Park. It was nice. I think we also, that's where I visited my first cat cafe. Not at Central Park, but around Times Square somewhere. It was awesome. But at the same time, the cats there, they were really bored and kind of tired of people. I can relate to that, but at the same time, like, yeah, they'd seen a lot of people. Like, they didn't give a shit. So we also went to a stand-up comedy show at the club where Seinfeld started out. That was one of the selling points for the guy at Times Square selling the tickets. And they weren't too expensive, so we were like, yeah, sure. And 2 drinks were included in the price. I really liked the show. The presenter, I think, was one of the better people doing the show, so she was really good. Unfortunately, of course, I don't remember any of the names of the comedians that were there, but it was a good show. Like, obviously, if you get a chance and have the cash to go to one of the like famous New York stand-up clubs, you should do it. Like, it's fun. I like stand-up. In the middle of this, I had planned to do the whole what do you need to think about when you do a rental car, but I think actually I'm gonna make that a separate video, so might as well do that. Oh, my brain. Actually, you know what, since I actually said I was gonna do it and I already made the intro, I might as well. So first thing to think about when you rent a rental car, find which website or which rental place you want to go through. There are a lot of them online. We used economy car rentals, and they are still around, and I found them to be really, really good because they listed them after price or other categories, which it was really easy to filter. They also include all the fees in the price, and this is not sponsored, by the way. It's just that they were really cohesive and it was easy to find a good car, and all of the things were already presented in the price. That way, like, you don't get any nasty surprises when you're at the rental desk. Like, on this website, they already tell you that if you're, for example, under 25, your price will be higher. It would be double the price. Like, Roxa was 25 and we had to book the car on her, even though I had had my driver's license for longer. I think I already said that in the previous video, but it still irks me. Like, I had had my driver's license for years. 4 years at that point. And because in Sweden you can't get your driver's license until you're 18 or older. I got mine at 19. So, like, I'd had it for several years and driven a lot in different climates and different weather, and that didn't count at all if you're not 25 or older. At some rental places, apparently it's if you're 30 or older even, so a young driver's fee can apply, and they include the economy car rentals include that in the price immediately. Some other car companies don't, and then they will slap it on when you collect your car. So be aware of that. Also, if you want to drive from one place to another and deliver it there, that comes with an extra fee too, which they also include and show you clearly. So that's also something you need to be aware of when you want to drive from one place to another. So just because a car rental website says one price, it can actually come with more fees, so it's important that you keep an eye on that. What size of car do you need? Obviously, if you're a bigger party of people that want to drive somewhere, you might consider comfort to be a more important thing than just keeping the space low. Like, obviously, Rox and I were two women in our 20s. We had one suitcase each and maybe a backpack. Like, we didn't need a lot of space, but if we had been 4 people on that road trip, we would have needed more space. As it was, we didn't, so that wasn't a problem at all. I already brought up the age thing. Then we come to insurance. Car insurance can obviously feel like something you should add on. Like, I think the basic one can be a good idea. Like, that will cover a lot of things that if anything happens to your car and it's not your fault. But then there can be like rock shoots, what's it called? Like when a rock hits your windshield, and you can get like a flat tire and stuff. Like, again, economy car rentals kind of include those. But then other car rental companies might want to sell you some extra insurance, and those can get really expensive. So I actually found another website which were really good for like listing everything you need to think about when you and what kind of insurance you might need for your road trip. It was rentalcover.com. Obviously it's a rental car company, so they wanted to promote their products, but they were also really good listing what different things mean, and like they seem to have reasonable rates for different types of coverage, and depending on many different factors. Like they weren't too expensive for compared to many other insurance companies. The problem with them would be that you might have to cash out first, like pay up front, and then you can claim it back through them. One thing that I don't think was a thing back in 2012, but I could be wrong, but we didn't read anywhere that it would be a problem, but there's apparently driving restrictions. Like, you can't drive a car that you started renting in California all across the country, and then because that rental thing is only valid in a few different states. That was really weird to me, because you can still rent it from one place to another, but then you can't drive it all the way there. It weirded me out a little bit, because we obviously had no problems. We were stopped maybe twice for checking our license plate and stuff, but it was no issue at all. We both had valid driver's licenses, and the car, all the documents that the car needed, we obviously had with us too, so yeah. You will need a credit card in order to rent a car, or any vehicle for that matter. Obviously, apparently that's supposed to mean that you're somehow responsible, as if it's not very, very easy to get a credit card nowadays. What to look out for is if they add extra fees and stuff. I really think it's dumb that they don't accept debit cards. I mean, as long as you have the money, what difference does the credit card make? But apparently it does. Additional drivers. This is difficult because if the additional driver is younger than 25, you will be slapped with that younger driver fee anyway. So yeah, just be aware that the insurance covers the drivers that are registered to drive, and not if another person is driving. So if you're not registered to drive, I would suggest that you do that. At least if you're over 25, or drive really freaking carefully. Like, I know sometimes yeah. Just be safe. The main driver is the one who signs the rental agreement, so all their information needs to be on there. The additional driver just needs to show like that they're actually a valid driver and have a driver's license. They don't need to be registered in the same way. Yeah, those were all the things I could think of that are really important to think about when you rent a car. Obviously, drive carefully. Think about what you're doing. Don't drive too fast. Oh, also, one more thing. Extra equipment. Rental car companies can be really, really stingy about like things like GPSs and stuff. They take a fee for per day for equipment like car seats for kids and GPS, or other types of services like that. So look out for that, and you might want to bring your own GPS with preloaded maps and stuff instead, because that might actually, if the trip is long, that might end up to be a better deal for you than to rent from the rental company. All right, so that was the no, wait, I didn't finish the whole tale about the trip. All right, so we were in New York, we had a good time there, and then the day came when we were flying home, and oh my god, it was the worst day of my life. Or one of them. Yeah, it was up there. So a few hours before we boarded the plane to fly home, I got dumped. It's not fun to go on an airplane with a lump in your throat, I can tell you that. Then I flew home, which took probably around 20 hours. That's usually the time. Between 12 and 20 hours is standard to fly across the Atlantic. Because there's usually at least one stop in like Germany or somewhere else. Then I finally got home. Like I usually fly to Copenhagen because that's closer than Stockholm would be. So I crossed the Öresund Bridge. I take the Pågatåg, the local regional train home. I walk all the way with my luggage, and I get home. And I realized that my keys are inside. I didn't bring them on the trip because I'll be across the world if I lose them there. Not fun. And then I realized that my parents, or I knew that they were, but like those things hadn't connected in my head. My parents were on vacation, wandering the mountains in the north of Sweden. They weren't home, so nobody could let me in. Therefore, I had to contact my brother, who was currently studying machine engineering in Lund. So I took the train there. Fortunately, my ticket was still valid. I get there and I try to track him down, but he was out partying. So I had to sort of track him throughout Lund and just try to get these freaking keys, or borrow his keys so I could get home so I could get in, so I could just sleep because I was exhausted. Oh, that was a day. I felt like I finally got home and I slept like 18 hours probably. And then a few days later, my parents got home, and yeah, it was nice. Like, eventually, I was happy to be home. Like, it was actually really nice weather then too. Like, for the end of September, it was acceptable. Yeah. So that was the day. That was the end of the American road trip of adventure. And next time, I think I will tell you about the trip to Japan that I also did with Roxanne. That was a year later. All right. Thank you so much for watching my my little travel story video, and I hope that the tips about rental cars was useful to you. If they were, and if you like this video, please share it with your friends. Yeah, you can subscribe if you want, and you can support me on Patreon if you want me to have money to do more journeys and stuff. Or if you share it with enough friends, maybe I can start monetizing these videos and do it that way. Sorry, that sounds a little bit greedy, but you know, I like traveling. Alright, so I'll see you in my next video. Thank you, bye.